So I like different perspectives from people across different industries that have different backgrounds, from leadership to business experience to, I love entrepreneurs. So
Fantastic, Andrew. Well, it's great to be here.
yeah, well, cool. So I like to. You're from California.
That's right.
And you love the city of Indianapolis.
That's right.
We just had a tough loss. I don't know if you.
Yeah. Oh,
brutal.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah, we'll be back next year.
You bet.
But so how did you come from California to Indianapolis, and then kind of want to walk down your career path, because I think it's very interesting. I think you wanted to become a doctor.
That's right. That's right.
And then got into math.
That's right.
Pretty heavy. So yeah, how'd you get to Indy out of California?
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Andrew. Berkeley, born and bred in the tumultuous 60s. A lot of upheaval, social and cultural upheaval in the 60s. And I grew up in a working class neighborhood, racially integrated, age integrated, and saw everything. And I ultimately, because white flight settled in, I was somewhat of a minority, and really didn't focus on academics. I was more focused on survival during these tumultuous times. It was fun to be a kid, and our home was full of love. My mom and dad loved all of our neighbors. I mean, we'd beat each other up in the street playing football, and then my mom would welcome everyone into the house. So I had a very loving home, but outside it was chaotic. Really didn't think about academics. So when in fact, my dad got transferred. He worked for Shell Oil, got transferred to an agricultural town in California, Modesto, which is the gateway to Yosemite, if you've been up there before.
Well, we ship a lot out of that area.
Yeah, okay. So that's where I finished my last 2 years of high school.
Okay.
And I started to think more about studying. And my mom and dad were both great readers, and I loved reading, but I'd never applied myself. And so when I had an opportunity to go to a private school in LA, I thought, well, what do I want to do? And I hadn't really thought about that. I said, oh, being a doctor sounds good, because I loved helping people. I saw my mom and dad, really helping people. My dad was a scientist. My mom was a classicist. And I thought, oh, I'll just be a physician. Well, I went to Biola College, now Biola University in LA, and the first day I was there as a freshman, the computer signed me up with my homeroom advisor to lay out my schedule. And I said, and I found out she was the chairwoman of the math department. And I said, I'm in the wrong spot, Dr. Liu, because I want to go pre-med, and I think I need to be with a life sciences kind of professor. And she said, no, I've seen your SAT scores. They're decent. They're really good in math. I know you like medicine. I'm going to show you a path forward. And that directed my journey over the next 8 years, because she said the magic words, you're going to get a PhD in biostatistics. And she was a very forceful woman, and I was just sort of a naive 18-year-old, and I said, yes, ma'am. And so for the next 8 years, that's what I did. I graduated with my math undergrad and then went to the Medical College of Virginia in Richmond and took my doctorate in biostatistics.
So from there, so you go biostatistics.
Right.
And then what's a career path back then in biostatistics?
Well, I was geared towards an academic career. Pharmaceutical companies were just starting to hire statisticians, and that's what ultimately led me to Indianapolis and Eli Lilly. But I was all ready to sign an offer I had in New York City from the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center associated with the Cornell Medical School there. I loved academia. My professors thought highly of academia. In fact, they thought people that go the corporate route are going to be robots and are sort of subpar to these white ivory tower professors. Exactly. And I love the fact that my professors got to play basketball for 3 hours every lunch. And I thought, this is the life for me. I want to be a professor and just do research. But Lilly, at the 11th hour, called me up. A friend of mine who had overlapped by 1 year in grad school, was hired by Lilly, called me up out of the blue and said, hey, Greg, we just procured an opening for a biostatistician here at Lilly. Would you come interview for the job? And I said, why not? So I didn't even know where Indianapolis was. I'd been to Indiana and Evansville before, but it was freezing in the middle of winter in February. Came out and interviewed. And I'll tell you, Andrew, within the first hour, I thought to myself, if these guys offer me a job, I want to come here.
So that was February?
That's right. February of 82.
Coming from California out here in February is much different feeling.
That's right.
So Lilly back then, how did Lilly look then? Because today it's a much different picture, but I can't imagine walking into Lilly at that time period.
In 82. I mean, very conservative, but the reason they had this opening for me, and I was a quant, is that they had gone through some crises recently. One was with this anti-arthritic drug called Oriflex. And your dad probably knows about that if you don't, but it had been pulled off the market because of some human toxicity. And they were under scrutiny for not looking at their adverse event and side effect data as quantitatively as they may have wanted to. And so they were starting to beef up their quant side to look at data more definitively and to be able to analyze and pull out signal from noise. And so that's where my expertise came in. So it was much smaller. I joined a department of just a handful of statisticians, and now it has hundreds and hundreds, given that the use of advanced analytics that permeates the company and the world.
On a side note, how do you think computers change? Because when you got an 82,
yes,
how did that transform your just out of curiosity, because we've seen it in our industry, it's changed it so much.
Oh, yeah.
We used to do fax machines.
Yes. We did fax back then. Yeah. We did punch cards, IBM punch cards. We were key punching these punch cards when I first joined.
A lot of people probably know what they are, but
no, I mean they're cardboard cards with little chads. The Gore Bush debacle in Florida. I was with hanging chads from the get-go. Wow. But Lilly was always at the forefront of introducing information technology into the corporate infrastructure. Yeah. So they brought these monitors in soon thereafter. So no more punch cards, electronic monitors. Not yet PCs, but monitors tied to the mainframes. Wow. Then after that, PCs. And Lilly was one of the first actually to work with Apple to bring what Steve Jobs was designing. And so we had an IBM infrastructure, but they'd let people experiment with Apple computers. And I always appreciated that innovative spirit there around computing.
Yeah, it's amazing how it can transform an organization, a process.
Without a doubt.
Working together.
Right.
So you start there. What was the exact position?
I was a senior statistician.
Okay.
And, just my personality, I just started leading people. And one day my boss walked into my office and said, "Greg, I'm making you a manager." He hadn't even talked about me. Now people have career conversations with their boss and what do you want to do 5 years from now? None of that back in the 80s. He literally walked in and said, "I'm making you a manager." He sort of recognized that I was already managing and leading people. So from there on, I've lost my chops quantitatively, Andrew, but that was back in 89. And I was thrown into another sort of crisis that hit Lilly. Lilly had traditionally been in the insulin and diabetes patient arena, and they still are, of course, very strong there, but also in anti-infectives, and had a whole portfolio of wonderful anti-infectives. And so, but they saw that anti-infectives weren't going to be the economic engine that would allow them to continue to be a strong R&D-based company. So they were the first to introduce these neuroscience drugs. Prozac, fluoxetine was the first one, but there were erroneous charges leveled against fluoxetine early on about suicidality, and my boss called me and said, "Greg, you got to save the company." And I pulled a team together took 18 months and a lot of trial and 24-hour, 7-day, week kind of thing. But that's where I cut my teeth as a manager around a specific crisis that the company had to address. And we came out well. And of course, Prozac did save the company. The revenue engine there allowed us to then move into other arenas. And now with Lilly's market cap, you can trace that all the way back to some of those early investments that we're able to secure for the company.
So on a project like that, somebody comes to you and they say, "Hey, we've got a problem. People have a perception."
Right.
And then they would leverage data.
That's right.
And you guys would scour over tons and tons and tons of data?
That's right. Tons and from all over the world. And at that time, Lilly, we were a domestic company, but we were growing internationally. We had to pull our information technology to cover the globe and to bring data in from all over the place. And so not only did we transform how we analyze data, but actually procuring, securing, or protecting that data, getting the right data in and making sure we didn't leave any stone unturned.
Because that was before Excel.
Oh, definitely. Yes. This was before almost anything. I mean, slide rules, no, we didn't have slide rules, but we were not too far beyond the slide rule.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you seem to know the drug names very well.
Yeah. I mean, Lilly, you got to know the business,
Yeah.
and I was very thankful to work with a company that has such a noble mission to save lives, to promote human health, a very noble mission, and that's what drives the company. Even now, is the mission they were on, and I'm a retiree now, but I still feel that's my home base after 30
awesome.
years. That we're trying to do good for the world.
True culture.
Yes, really is.
So you go from there, and then you get into later into Lilly before you 30 years, right?
That's right, 30 years. So I was in management, and after many years leading our analytics group and setting up analytics centers all over the world and sort of building our infrastructure up and building a team of data, now called data scientists, but really it was statisticians, mathematicians, who permeated everything from drug discovery all the way through manufacturing and commercialization. They're much bigger and stronger now than I left them, but I moved into regulatory affairs. Okay. And when you see my gray hair, I will just admit a lot of that came from that arena, because those scientists in the regulatory world are sort of on the front lines of getting new drugs approved through the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and then internationally through the health authorities around the world. And that's the bread and butter of the company, is getting new drugs approved, getting them on the market, and keeping them on the market. So our group was involved with the interface between the company, its scientists, and all of its data, and those that would review that data and make the ultimate approval or non-approval decisions in the health authorities. My focus was on the U.S., but we helped develop global regulatory strategy that would make sure the drugs were getting approved as quickly as possible in our major markets around the world.
So you guys would, in a simple terms, you would analyze the data and present it.
Right. Well, the people in the company analyzed it, but we had to craft the story with the data, and then we're on the front lines negotiating, just like we're here negotiating toe-to-toe with the regulators to convince them that our data supported approval.
It's almost amazing. Most people, you just go to the store and buy a drug today.
No.
And then all the stuff that happens on the backside of it,
right?
There's probably not a true appreciation for it.
No, there isn't. And that's why now the company, major pharma, is under attack with prices are too high, and we're seeing that. No, price, you have to invest, because there's a lot going on behind the scenes. It's not easy to just get a new drug to market where the benefits really outweigh the risks. And so I'm all in favor of letting the marketplace adjudicate the pricing, not just clamping down saying you can only pay pennies on the dollar, because the industry will die and human health will suffer.
How long does it take to get a drug to market?
Well, back in the day, on average, it was 7 to 10 years in the clinic. That doesn't account for all the laboratory and drug discovery that's going on decades before, finding little germs in microbes in sub-Saharan Africa kind of thing, and bringing those forward. Now, we're using AI now and all kinds of things to try to eliminate that, and Lilly's been really good at reducing the time it takes to be in the clinical trial experiment, finding investigators and getting patients into trials. So they've really expedited that and shortened the drug time. Back in the day, for me, it cost almost $2 billion, a fully loaded cost for one drug to make it, because back then the rate was only one drug coming out of the discovery labs made it to humans. 9 failed along the way. So you have to account for all those dry wells along the way too. So it's expensive and it's time consuming. I'm actually interested now in how do we sort of leverage the broader populations here in the U.S. to get precision medicine, so that we know your genetic signature, my genetic signature, we can actually steer drugs in a more precise way to the right people using larger populations. And that will help make this process much more efficient in the future.
I often think about, like in our industry, AI is starting to play a lot of roles in using data and making from agents to bots to pricing and all different types of things. But even in science, like how does AI going to change? Because there used to be so much data sitting across a broad spectrum. Now you can bring it in fast.
That's right.
And analyze it.
That's right. And I expect Lilly to be on the forefront there. Back in my day, we brought in the first Cray supercomputer, C-R-A-Y. Have you heard of Cray?
I've not.
You got to see these things. It was a supercomputer. Lilly was the first pharma company to bring it in. It filled up a whole room. It looked like a beautiful, R2-D2 robot kind of thing. And Lilly's always been on the forefront of trying to bring technology in. And so I expect them to really use AI well in the early phases.
So you start in 82. In 89, you become a manager.
That's
You're
right.
told you're a manager.
That's right. That's right.
When you left, how big was that department? How much did it change?
Well, we had 150 when I left in 98, then moved into regulatory. Regulatory is a much smaller staff because we were strategic consultants with senior management. And so I didn't need that large of a staff. It was just more the onus on us to have a small, nimble group that could help flex in moments of crisis and help the company plan well. So I'm really proud of the department, and those who succeeded me, of course, did a much better job than me to really bring it to where it was. And now the statistical voice in the company has an ear on the 12th floor at Lilly where the CEO sits.
Yes. So in 89 or 98, when you leave that group,
yes,
if you could, and you think about it today in 89, go back to that point, if you could tell yourself something about being a manager or a leader,
right?
Is there things that you would have said if you could look back and say, hey, do this, it would have been a lot better? Is there any skill set or thing that you think of that would have helped your management go a lot better in the early days?
That's a great question. I think I always knew what my North Star was. Lilly's a very ethical company, and that's why I could align my personal values with the corporate values. But, in a big corporation, there's lots of politics, for example, to go on. So getting into leadership, getting into management, you have to think it's not just about me and doing well and not even supporting my staff. It's how do you manage upwards, because it gets more and more political as you move up the food chain. So I would have appreciated better coaching and mentoring about what it's like to have influence at higher levels without me just sort of being out there on my own, learning and failing and seeking to do that. So that's one important thing is you have to, if you're in leadership and management, you have to know how to work with different people and how to influence those who have greater authority and power than you in order to see that things that you want to get done.
Mentors.
Yes.
Is there a mentor in your life that helped you come up and help the person actually become the person you are today?
Well, definitely, and certainly professionally. I mentioned my math chairwoman who really guided me for 8 years. And then the individual that hired me at Lilly, Charlie Sampson, he's a legend in the biopharma statistical community. He's no longer with us, but he was a very important force in my life as far as grooming me and helping me understand how important it was to always determine where the truth is, speak to the truth, and put it in context, not just throw flamethrowers at people, but tell stories and analogies. He was an Iowa farm boy, and he knew how to tell stories. And that kind of storytelling mentoring really helped me sort of frame the truth in a way that people could understand it. And so professionally, that really helped me.
Yeah, storytelling, I think, is critical.
Yes.
A lot of times, like speaking and communicating to people have to understand it. And
Right.
it often feels like a lost art.
Right.
In business and life.
That's
in
right.
general today, with the way we communicate, is a lot different.
That's right. And then just in life, my dad was the best man in my wedding. And the reason is that he was my guy. He was my mentor for life. And he died over 10 years ago, but he really molded me apart from, he was intentional in loving me, and I'm the oldest of 6 kids. I know you have a lot of siblings too. But I always looked to him for advice, even later on in life as how he led his family. He was a man of strong faith, and he knew what he was called to be and do, and to love his neighbor as he loved himself, as we love God that way. And so that really has made a lifelong impression on me.
So when you leave Lilly, what did you decide to do?
Well, I went with 2 of my former bosses, 2 physicians, and we formed a little 3-person partnership working with Faegre Drinker, the law firm.
Yeah.
We were 2 physicians and a scientist who helped biopharma companies that didn't have our regulatory expertise sort of worked the traps on the regulatory side. So I worked part-time doing that, supporting them. But after a couple of years, the law firm, I couldn't become a partner. I'm not a lawyer. And they said, you either have to go full-time or we'll see you later. And I said,
see you later.
I said, see you later. I mean, it's a great firm. I love their lawyers. Many are still friends. So after that, I was then asked to serve as the founding president of a leadership development experience on the eastern shore of Maryland on the Chesapeake Bay. Have you been to the U.S. Naval Academy?
I have
before?
not.
So the Chesapeake is a gorgeous spot. The eastern shore of Maryland is just wonderful. A lot of sailboats and crabs and fishing and things like that. Well, I led this experience there. I still lived here in Indy. I've never moved. We had program staff there, but we had a mission to cultivate college graduates, men and women, who would come and live together for 9 months on the eastern shore and really grow them so that they could be the leaders that they were called to be. But unfortunately, we had to shut that down in 2018. The model wasn't quite right for the financial situation that was going on back then a few years ago. And so since then, I've just been a professional volunteer, I would call myself. I'm not making any money. I'm just seeking to build out the city by engaging entrepreneurs, by engaging communities, and seeing this city really become a city that's known for leveraging its good, solid relationships so that all flourish and so that both residents and guests to our city really experience a kind of life that they can't experience anywhere else.
What do you think is the key to leadership? I think you can look at different organizations across the country,
right,
and businesses and life and everything.
Right.
And I think leaders really matter.
Right.
What do you think is the key to a good leader?
It's asking this question: why are people following you?
Okay.
If it's because of coercion, if it's because of the hammer all the time, then that does not make a good leader. To ask yourself, why are these people following me? First of all, you have to have followers to be a leader. Right. If you have none, that says something about your leadership, right? So if you have followers, you ask them, okay, why are you following me? And how are you willing to go to battle with me? And to see that demonstrated in their actions as well as their words and whatnot. And so that helps individuals figure it out. And it looks different at the surface, but when you go down deep, the keys to being a good leader, I think, are being humble, being curious, and being ambitious, and being willing to take the blows for those that are following you. And so those are some principles that I sort of rest on. Now, and I'm still aspiring to those in my own life.
For sure. How do you develop leaders? Because there's been statements I've seen people say you can't really,
right,
you're either born a leader or you're not.
Right.
And how do you think people can develop into a leader?
Well, certainly there is sort of who you are, your DNA, but you got to throw people in and you got to give them freedom to operate, is what I say. That's how you develop leaders. You take chances on people and you see what happens there and you coach and guide. Just like playing sports, how do you develop your team? You got to throw them in, give them some challenges, you work them out well, but you put them in game time situations and see how they do, and then you coach them on the sideline. That's how you develop leaders. It has to be hands-on. It's not so much content and what you know, but is being in the game, in the trenches, working it out, and then having that mentor and coach guide you along the way. So that's what I'd look to. Books are fine, but if you're going to choose books versus personal relationship and coaching, forget the books. Get in the heat of battle.
Is there anything, when you look back to your corporate career for 30 years and you started managing in 89 and you developed all the way through, is there any things that you did to develop young people, in particular young managers up? Was there any programs or things that you think were really helped them, push them to become a better leader down the line?
The first thing I did is I flipped the org chart. Instead of, Lilly was very hierarchical, and big companies are, where the boss was on top and then you have your subordinates down here.
Sure.
I turned it around and I said, and I actually graphically depicted this, and that's what we published. My management started saying, whoa, this is the first.
So you had a hierarchy?
Yeah, up top, the employees up top, and I was at the bottom.
Okay.
I said, I'm here to serve you and equip you to make you into all that you can be, because you're the group that's doing the work. I'm here to support you. And so that's what I think the first step is reimagining what your leadership looks like with your people. And then certainly there's courses and things, even now with some of the stuff I'm doing. How do we help young men, young leaders emerge being capable with AI in their families, in their neighborhoods, in their city, in their businesses? How we do that? So, but it's always, what can I do for you, not what you can do for me.
How did the team react to that? Because that's very different. Every org chart you ever see, it's always the top down.
That's right.
And this is the person in charge. This is who you report to.
That's right. Well, I mentioned my management was sort of taken aback, but after a while, they trusted me and they went with it. And my staff gravitated towards that and saying, okay, that's the way it's going to be. And it helped them move up a notch. Like, oh, you mean you're looking to me for leadership? You aren't the leader? Well, I am. But this is how it's going to be. Yeah. You're going to be out there, and I'm going to be supporting you. Now, there are times when I had to lead out in front. Sure. I had to carry the shield and the sword and fight those battles, many to protect them and to push them further. But most of the time, 80-20, I said to them, who are your customers? How are you leading them today? I had them laminate. Back then we didn't have a lot of computing, so we had laminated cards. I wanted to know who their internal customers were, who their clients were. And I asked them, when I met with them regularly, what are they doing? Are they on vacation? How's their family? What are they working on? How are you supporting them? They had to lead and guide, and I was there just to help them.
So the card was a reminder.
Yeah, a reminder for them who their customers were.
I think you said something that's great, internal customers.
Yes, that's right.
I feel like in organizations, each department has an internal customer.
Without a doubt.
And you have to understand their roadmap.
That's right.
Do you have any, when you think back to it, how many success stories that you still remember today of a manager that went on to do great things that you helped?
Well, there's one. Yes, there's a number of them. One more prominent one is I worked hard to recruit this young statistician who was getting her doctorate out in California, and worked hard to bring her in. She had lots of opportunities, and then I put her in position to succeed. I took some heat for restructuring with Dr. Lechleiter. He was sort of an innovator, organizational effectiveness, and he developed these heavyweight teams. And so I sort of broke up our function. We were more functionally oriented before then, and I put top talent on teams. And it was different, and I took some heat for doing that, but I put this individual on a team. She rose and shined there. I mentored her and coached her early on, turned her over to other mentors in the team who were working with her, and she became the CIO for the company.
Oh, wow.
An executive position. And now she sits on the NVIDIA board. So that's one. That was just neat to see how she was able, and she was true servant leader. She was a vivacious leader, very sharp, from the get-go, but still leveraged her personality, her DNA to lead well. So that's one prominent success story. And then there's other success stories where people became more than just who they were in the sum of their parts, because they got to be embedded in this ecosystem that accelerated their growth and their position. Sort of like being a point guard on a team, right? Tyrese is great, and we wish him well as he recovers for the Pacers. But he needs others around him. He can dish the ball, but he needs those players, and that's what true leadership is knowing who your team, your ecosystem is, and be able to dish or take the shot at the right time.
So you said something. So was the concept, without going too deep, a heavyweight team, the best of the best in one group?
That's right.
And you said, I'm going to spread it out.
Yeah, I'm going to spread it out. And so my function suffered, because I was growing this talent, and I gave the best to these two heavyweight teams, because that was
sort of them off years.
Exactly. So I took heat for giving the best away. But that's leadership. You have to sacrifice sometimes. Now, you can't just completely, you have to sort of weigh the pros and cons, how to do this. And it's a fine line, but we had to sacrifice. But that I won't use the word save the company, but those two heavyweight teams led the way for where the company is now and how they do work within teams.
As a math guy, how do you think managers should measure success? So I know they have the function.
That's right.
And their job function.
That's right.
But is it retention? What do you think is a good sign of a measurable?
Well, those are all good. I think ultimately, you have to deliver on the corporate goals.
Sure.
So apart from that, though, those are what I call, there's what's and how's. Managers should be measured on the what.
Sure.
Are they hitting, where are they on the corporate goal? But more important in this day and age, on the how. How did they get there? If you're exploiting people, forget it. You're out of here. If you're ethical, which is win-win, that's good. But I like to help people sort of reimagine what their leadership is and how they're going to be measured. Are you moving towards what many people now call this restorative or redemptive edge? Are you moving even beyond ethical so that sometimes you have to sacrifice so that all of us win even more? It may be longer run, it may be more patient, but there's a bigger prize if you're willing to sacrifice a little up front. So that's sort of how I would measure people, is what are you doing in how you're doing your management that sort of shows some humility, shows some driving ambition, but your willingness to sacrifice your ego, maybe even a little bit of how people view your career, but you're doing the right thing so that in the long run, the entity wins even more.
There's a great podcast by a professor from Purdue, I think. But she took chickens that were the best producing, the average and the lowest, and she put all the best in one group, and they pecked each other to death.
Yes, that's right.
And so you talked about talent a lot.
Right.
And sometimes the brightest talent in the world has the biggest ego.
That's right.
How did you as a leader, especially in a hyper-competitive environment like drug manufacturing, how did you balance saying we're going to get only the best and the brightest with people that have other characteristics, maybe not the same scientific skill, but could come in underneath? Did you consider that when you were building teams out?
Yes. Lilly attracted me because they generally were very draconian in how they hired people. They just didn't bring on reams of people. They always looked for the top talent. So I didn't want to find the top talent, but what is top talent? Maybe it's not the person with the highest IQ, but it might be the person who's smart, but not the genius, but they have the personal skills and the drive to make stuff happen. So that's how I differentiated. And the second thing is, I'm not sure how companies do performance management now, or how they allocate salary increases. They want to retain top talent, not give as much to those that aren't top. There's others who say, if you aren't in the top 50%, you're out of here next year. So I don't know how things go, but what I did is, instead of just bucketing people into these broad categories and saying you're top and you're not, I would take it and work harder to actually differentiate people, not so that they would compete against each other, but that so I and my management team would understand, when push comes to shove, who's one, who's two, who's three, because of why. And so it brought out the whys, and our team always talked about, why is this person so effective? Why are they not effective? So by introducing good performance management, which was granular, the conversations amongst the team and the culture we built was very helpful.
More of an open dialogue.
Open dialogue. Without that, you're shoving stuff under the rug, and you're not bringing honesty and truth to bear. And that does nobody any good.
It'll come out sometime.
Exactly.
So you love our city.
That's right.
How has the city changed since your arrival in '82? I know that's a very loaded question, but if you think about it from the '80s to today, what do you think are some of the biggest changes?
Well, just in seeing downtown being redeveloped, Lilly was an island on the south side. It wasn't connected with,
because there was no mall.
The circle. No mall, no nothing. It was desolate down here.
And how many buildings did they have at that time?
Eli Lilly at the corporate center. I don't know, but the footprint was smaller than it is now. Of course, they're all over the place.
It's everywhere now.
But downtown, I moved downtown in '83. My wife's from Bloomington, Indiana, so we were married in the latter part of '86. But before then, a friend of mine started working with inner city high school boys, and we wanted to be close to them. They were coming to this community outreach center at 23rd and Guilford, so we bought an old derelict Queen Anne-style home at 12th and Central.
Oh, wow.
And back then the neighborhood, which is now called the Old North Side, it was desolate, and it was scary. One of our roommates moved in. His mom came down from Fort Wayne. She just started crying. She couldn't believe that this guy was moving in with us there. But so now if you drive down Central, what do you see? You see just beautiful homes, neighbors that are keeping their lawn right. Now, there's pros and cons with that kind of gentrification, right? Because people are removed who are renters. They can't afford because the rents go up or home ownership comes in. So I'm all for sort of not just pure abject displacement, but how do we grow this community together? But Indianapolis, I think, has improved so much with its quality of life in the near north side downtown arena. I will lament We still have our problems downtown. Just even walking here from the parking lot, there were four people just out there, homeless, asking me for money, stopping me in the middle of the street. No one else is walking. Everyone else is in the office buildings. I just felt sad. One thing I appreciate about Indianapolis, it's friendly. And so I see people coming here who say, hey, this is a good place to land. I can sleep on the street and ask people for money. For sure. I want us to be hospitable. But on the other hand, we have to sort of solve this issue of how are we going to work with those that are coming here and just blocking traffic and
make it safe.
Yeah, and make it safe for people. And I don't want to discourage people from coming down. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing at our co-working space, sort of create an icon in the city, say Indianapolis is safe, it's good, come on downtown.
So can you talk about your co-working space?
Yeah, it's called Polk Stables at 16th and the Monon Trail.
Right.
It's the old Polk Sanitary Milk Company stables that housed the horses that pulled the milk wagons through town in the latter part of the 19th century. Okay. So the bones, are over 140 years old. Right. So it's been really beautiful to take that space, 21,000 square feet, to bring in companies. And, we've had companies spin out of High Alpha and other design firms and enterprise lift up, minority-led enterprise saying, we're going to give you a below-market rate stint here for a year, just sort of incubate your operation and let you flourish. So we're doing all kinds of things to help the creative economy really expand. So what we have artists there working with Joanna Taft, who's the executive director and founder of the Harrison Center for the Arts. And so we have beautiful museums that she stood up with the community, honoring the African-American historic nature of the community, honoring art. We have full-time artists that come in and do residencies there. Neat. So we're trying to fuse industry and art. And what happens when art is more than just a painting on your wall in your building? What happens when business types and leaders are interacting with artists? What can that do to accelerate the creative economy that we're moving towards?
And you've also been involved with education.
Yes, definitely. I was the founding board chair of the Oaks Academy.
That's great.
And now there's 1,100 plus students, racially diverse, socioeconomically diverse.
And where's that at? That's out on?
Well, there's 3 campuses. Okay. There's 2 K through 5 fifth grade campuses in the near North Brookside Park area, and then 23rd and Park. And then the middle school, both those schools feed into the middle school, 6th through 8th grade, on 16th Street at Andrew J. Brown, near the Monon and near our building, Polk Stables. So it's been beautiful to see that grow and to see their graduates succeed. There's no place like it in the city where those who would never have an economic opportunity to succeed at Park Tudor University, top drawer private schools here, now because of what they're doing to be able to bring low-income families in and see them grow. And not that they have to go to Park Tudor. I mean,
go anywhere.
Go anywhere, but they're succeeding and thriving. It's really beautiful.
That's great to see. When did that start?
1998.
And then now you're up to 1,100.
Now 1,100 plus. Largest primary school in Indiana.
That's
I just
really
saw IBJ's report on that. Either 1 or 2.
Congrats. That's awesome to see.
Yeah. So, no human can take credit for it. Only God, only a miracle could. I mean, we went out of business almost every semester, begging for money, but so many people came along. And then when Governor Daniels at the time introduced vouchers into law, legislation now allows those folks to actually use state dollars, carry it with them into schools of their choice.
So you're actively involved in the city.
Yes.
And is it Citizen 7?
Yeah, Citizen 7.
Can you tell us about that?
It's just my very good friend, dear friend Don Palmer and I, we started mentoring inner city kids through the KIPP school at 42nd and Millersville. And one of Don's friends saw us and said, can I join you? Well, 2 became 3, became 800 now plus on our mailing list of, just men who love the city and love the fact that when we host events, they aren't networking events. They are like anti-networking. When I go to a networking event, I'm thinking, can I make a business contact? What can I get? Our ethos, Andrew, is what can I give? And so men are experiencing the sense of how can I give to others. And so that's the spirit of gratitude and generosity that we're trying to fill out, not do-gooderism, but out of our own gratitude and humility, how can we serve the city? So we want makers, not takers. Okay. We want builders, not destroyers. We want people, men who are about action. Many women have come and said, how come I can't join? Well, we're about male friendships. Men have a hard time developing authentic friendships with each other. And just being on the golf course, which is fun and good, it isn't good enough to really get down into the depths. Men build authentic friendships in the trenches, in war, on mission. And so that's what we're trying to do is what's our mission? To love this city. And then how do we build authentic friendships among men and have fun while we're doing it?
Sure.
And we're the network for guys that are too busy to be part of another network. We want guys that are really busy because there's no obligation. We aren't an organization. We aren't a not-for-profit. We're a movement that's seeking to love the city and see the city really become an inspiring city for all who live here and all that visit.
So do you guys work on projects around the city?
Yeah, so whatever your project is.
Okay.
And our ethos is, how do we support you? If you're on the board of a nonprofit, what board needs do you have? Oh, I have a financial guy that can become your financial chair. You know, we try to help what's already going on in the city. So this year we have a number of initiatives around mental health, around personal growth and development to lead in our community. We're technical skills. I'm going to be talking with someone about how to bring AI and to learn how to use AI effectively. Sure. So, but our ultimate goal is to sort of take guys where they are and say, how can you lead well in your families, in your neighborhoods, and in your business so that the city experiences the joy of you doing that there.
So how often do you guys get together? And
your dad was just at our last time at Meridian Hills Country Club with Dr. Leckleiter. Those large group cadence is about every 6 weeks.
Okay.
We're just in our third year of ramping up. We're sort of at a pivot point. We're calling it 2.0. We have a leadership team, a multiracial leadership team that's taking us to new heights. We're using a tech platform to allow guys to connect with one another around interests. You know, if you're a bicyclist and want to go on a 50-mile bike ride, hey, there's a group there, a private group, just ask them. You know, don't go through me to find those connections. Find guys whom you really like, but you may not know. And so we meet in these large events every 6 to 8 weeks, but we have smaller group things going on now too.
Okay.
We just hosted something out at the former Colt punter, Hunter Smith's, his farm in Zionsville. We had a few families and their kids and spouses come, and they enjoyed a beautiful Saturday afternoon at Wonder Tree Farm. So we do lots of stuff just to help guys just connect where they can.
Okay, awesome. Well, I really appreciate you talking through your leadership. We love what all you've done for the city, and your insights have been awesome and really appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome, Andrew. It's great to meet you, and it's great to sort of partner with you and your firm. And I'm truly mean this. What can we do to help Spot, help you personally? We want to be about the next generation.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.